universe is a symbol of both the birth and death, and therefore rebirth of everything in existence, and therefore this, the last card in the major arcana, is the completion of the aim of Hermeticism, the completion of that great work of bringing the soul back to God, the completion of our journey of consciousness. On the Rider-Waite tarot deck, this card is called The World, and of course shows a great number of esoteric symbols, some of which similar to what we're going to see, and some of which different. Of course, the Thoth card is not just the world, but the entire universe. We've expanded our horizons simply by looking at things outside of just our existence, but the existence of everything. On the Tree of Life, this card connects Yesod to Malkuth, and Yesod is associated with the moon, and Malkuth, of course, as we've seen before, is the earth, the lower vibration. What's particularly interesting about this is that it is located on the middle pillar of the Tree of Life, so it represents perfect balance. And the middle pillar is associated with things such as the Holy Trinity and all of these principles which speak about a union and a oneness, such as Father, Son and Holy Spirit, and all of that type of thing. And it's also got a fertility to it, which most of these things do, such as the breath of life being put into Malkuth, so the physical world being imbued with life which becomes conscious and sets out on that fool's journey, like where we started from. At the bottom of the card we can see our Hebrew character, and as is fitting for the final card, this is the letter Tau. The Tau, of course, being hugely in depth, and it means basically cross in Hebrew. It's related to the number 4, so again matter, the physical world, and of course of the fourfold nature of man and the 4 aspects of the Tetragrammaton and various other things. So this card really is the end of the tarot. So the Fool will be Alpha and the universe would be Omega. This is the end point, and therefore the springing board to be the beginning point yet again as these cycles continue. The astrological association is Saturn and Earth, which is relatively interesting. Saturn being the dull father time point on the astrological scale, so physical structure, perhaps stagnation, death, all that type of thing like we had before, and yet also Earth. And so Saturn on the Tree of Life would be Binah, the 3rd Sephiroth, which is part of the supernal triangle. So we have Saturn linking basically that it's basically saying the highest and the lowest together. It's an equilibrium. It's one of those things you can delve really far into if you would like to. In the centre of the card is the Maiden, and if you look at her, she's actually sitting or laying in the same pose as the twins did over on the Sun card. So she has her legs crossed in this reversed position, which is the opposite, of course, to the Hanged Man, and therefore indicates freedom rather than restriction. And so, just as we've been seeing throughout the journey, which is getting more and more free, here we have a position which symbolises freedom absolutely. And just as we've seen Tau as the Hebrew character, which means cross, her legs are crossed in this formation, and they are directed towards the 4 characters in the corners of the card. These creatures represent the zodiac. They are what you would call cherubim images. And so this represents mastering the 4 elements, because they're also elemental characters, and elemental characters represent the physical world. So the cross here is the microcosm, and the zodiac, the characters around the edge, are the macrocosm. And therefore we have the mastery and oneness of all showing up in the card. Now there is a square behind her which is made out of a white bright light, so this actually appears to be radiating out of the back of her, and this is a representation of the inner light, such as we've been seeing in the Kundalini, the inner fire. So it's enlightenment within her, granting her freedom from matter. So the square world representing the physical world, and yet it's now filled with light. and she's outside of the box, so she is being granted freedom. She's filled with the light of the universe, the light of God. This is further seen in the colour, so she's coloured in gold, representing the sun, or Tifereth, or the light that she has been illuminated by. The energies within the middle pillar that we were speaking about have all been brought together, and enlightenment has resulted from that. And so while earth is usually shown as black on these trees of life and these symbols, here we have it gold, light sun, just as a sunny day in the very physical and basic term grants us a more wonderful feeling than a dark and miserable day. The sun inside grants this enlightened experience, so the entire universe is filled with this sun, this wonderful energy of the light of God. The serpent, which is the other prominent symbol on the card, has both light and dark colours upon it, and so this, of course, as all of the cards are, is your duality symbol. And so this is the blind force of creation. This is the idea that these powers of creation, these acts of will and intent and so on, can be used for good or bad, and they can have both good or bad consequences for doing them. Basically, creation as a blind force will show itself in both good ways and in bad ways, and that's just going to be the nature of the beast, so to speak. This serpent is coming across the maiden, and it actually surrounds where about the second chakra would be if we were to look at the 7 main chakras. That second chakra is talking about the sexual organs, and is therefore a sexual rising of energy. The serpent, the Kundalini serpent, so of course this is a symbol of the Kundalini awakening, as we've just seen. Another way of looking at this is if we look at the eye, this beam of light is coming out of it and almost giving birth to the serpent, and so it could therefore represent a type of sperm, the life force, ejaculated from the eye, and so it's the seed of creation. The sperm on these things always represents the seed, the origin of something. And so our bondage in physical world, our imprisonment in the physical world, is actually that of what she has conquered. She's conquered the reoccurring cycles and the physical entrapment of the spirit. Her foot is actually upon the head of the serpent, which is implying what we've just spoken about, that she's conquered it. She's conquered the universe, she's walked that spiritual path, the fool's journey, and now she's completely free of matter. She is basically Eve. She's been tempted by this serpent, which apparently leads to the fall of man and people knowing that they're naked and all this type of thing. And so she's walking on top of it. She's enlightened. She has the symbol of her walking on top of it is showing that she has risen above it. She has risen above that imprisonment to the physical world with the enlightenment of which is shining within her. Crowley, as well, in the book of Thoth, describes this serpent as Heru Ra-Ha, which is something we saw over on the Sun cards, and is one of the present aeons, and this connects to Crowley's whole idea of the new aeon of Horus, which we would have to go into in another video due to its deep detail. The actual Eye of Horus itself, which is on here and is next to the cherubs at the top, has its own association with Aquarius, the Eye of Horus, and so essentially this is occurring at the same time as the new Aeon of Horus would be born, and so when that enlightenment occurs, your new Aeon is born, so it's got that thalamic symbol coming on there as well. Now there's 10 rays actually emanating from this eye, and they are coloured in, if you look carefully on them, with blue, and yet also of red, and mostly of yellow. These are elemental, of course, water, fire and air, and they can be quite hard to actually see in the card, and yet it's said that there is a beam in the centre is Kether, and so Kether, the illumination, which is giving birth to that serpent, is separate from and above the 4 elements of the physical world. There's also a circle of stars, and this again is the body of the goddess Nuit, and so here the goddess Nuit, as her protective firmament image of which she is surrounding the maiden and the serpent, so Nuit is encompassing everything in the universe there. The actual thing, if we count it, is 3 units deep, and there's actually 72 emanations of like feathery looking designs coming off it. Now 3 times 72 is 216. The Shemham Forash, which rule the 36 deacons of the zodiac, so this is going into the minor arcana of the tarot, which we may cover at a later date or may not. Basically there's 2 of these for each deacon, so you would have 72 cards in total. If you have 6 times 6 times 6, 666, you come again with that number 216. Essentially the 216 means the material world, the physical world. And so that's why we have that there, and that's a little glimpse into the occult symbologies of these numbers and numerologies. The green disc is the Earth, and so the Earth again is no longer dark. It's not shown like as it was in previous cards, like in a browny colour. It's full of wonder and budding blooms, and it's green. It's a green and pleasant land, and this is in correlation with the Fool's enlightenment. So he's started off seeing the Earth in that brown way, and now he's seeing it in bloom, which is another symbol of enlightenment. The rather interesting sort of whirling vortex type shape in the centre of the card is actually thought to conceal within it an invisible tree of life. Obviously we can't see that, and so essentially it should have the elements and the planets, which are the different Sephiroth of the tree of life inside there. The shape of it is a Mobius strip, so one would start at one end and finish at the other. It's an equilibrium, and the table of chemical elements is shown behind the serpent and the maiden as well. So we're looking really at the physical world. These are the building blocks of the world. Everything that we see is built out of various elements of the universe, and it's thought that everything in the universe is built out of the same building blocks, and the fact that she is, here in the centre of it is showing that she's conquering all of it via this illumination. So she knows, she understands that her true will, her true nature, is outside of the physical world, outside of her physical form, and the physical form of all of these planets and existences. You can also see a pyramid within this table of elements, and that pyramid again is creation, physical world, building things. The eagle in the top left corner here has 13 feathers, and that links it with the death card, and also that of Scorpio, so this is the symbol of water. The man here has the numbers 1 to 7 on his ears, which is extremely hard to see, but they are there, and so that adds up to the star card, and therefore is the element of Aquarius and air. The lion has 11 locks of hair, which brings it to the lust card, number 11, and the element of fire, or Leo. And the bull has 5 locks of hair, which links it to the Hierophant card, which is Taurus and the element of earth. We can also see hidden in these symbols the life cycle of a man. So the lion is lust. This lust has occurred to give him his conception, and he's been born. The bull, which is the Hierophant, it says that he's been born into this world all full of mysteries, and that he looks up and has this sense of wonder and wonders what life's all about, and goes through life experiencing and becoming conscious. We then have the death card, which is to do with the eagle, and therefore he's died. It's actually his physical death. And then finally we come to the man, which is the star, and he's transmuted from this. He's risen up from it. His soul is free, and he can be rebirthed, so he can go through the conception process again and be reborn. So it's the cycle of life, and it's closed the circle. It has finished the journey. And so that's really what this card means. If you draw it, it means your project, your story is complete. All the effort you've put into something is going to actually start finally to show itself. Your journey's coming to an end. You have reached your destination, as your sat-nav would say in the modern world. It can also be reminding you to finish what you've started, because you've put all this spiritual energy into something, and it's laying there dormant, waiting for you to take mastery over it, put the power of will into it, and therefore get results out of it. really is enlightenment. And if you look into enlightenment, it's talking about there's no self, there's no light or colour, there's no sound, and you think, well, that doesn't sound like something that we could actually describe. And so really this is why all throughout this and all throughout these different symbols, the only real way of explaining enlightenment is love. And this is not earthly love, physical and sexual love, but is a completely unconditional love. It is the essence of life itself, and some would suggest the essence of the entire universe.